Hey there, I'm Brittany Smith and welcome to Filmmaker Symposium. So there are several different ways in which we can make our stories more interesting and complex. One of those ways is through subplots. So today we're going to explore the idea of adding subplots to your story. So when is the best time to use a subplot? Well, many times when a beginning writer is starting out, they usually have these scenes where they're just trying to describe their character's world or try to set up the character. And these are called expositional scenes. And this is a big no-no in filmmaking because it bores your audience. You don't want scenes that are entirely description or exposition. So when you find that you're in a situation when you're writing and you have this expositional scene and you don't know how to add conflict to it, you can actually add a subplot, and the subplot will add that added interest with the conflict. So here's an example. Let's take our Prince and Dragon story that I've been using for many videos now. But let's say the prince lives with his happy family in his royal palace, and then a dragon comes along and kills his father. So this is the inciting incident in the story. But up until then, I would be tempted to have a lot of expositional scenes about how happy the prince is in his palace. But instead of just having a bunch of boring scenes like that, I can add a subplot right before this inciting incident. So this subplot could be perhaps a romance with a princess. So let's say the family is holding a feast in their palace and they invite a princess and her family to come and join the feast. At the feast, the prince notices the princess and the princess notices the prince, but she's bent on not liking him. So he comes up and tries to start a conversation, but she makes it very clear that she's engaged and it's in an arranged engagement situation. So that's where the romance starts. That's where that conflict starts for that particular subplot. So the subplot really serves the main plot by making sure that our main plot is not just exposition, that there's actually some conflict in those areas where we're trying to set up the situation. So there are two different kinds of subplots that you can use in your story. The first one is a resonating subplot. Now, a resonating subplot is a subplot that supports the main story that you already have. So it kind of has the same theme and the same idea. An example of this would be in Ever After. So in Ever After, you have the main character, Danielle. She is coming from a suppressed situation and finds love with the prince. Then you have her stepsister, the younger one. Even though she is the daughter of her mother, she actually is somewhat suppressed because she's the non-favorite, but she also finds love in the background. It's a subplot. It's a tiny little subplot that you can barely notice, but it is there, and it does help resonate with the main story. Now, the second type of subplot you can do is a contradicting subplot, which kind of adds support to the main subplot because it makes it more pronounced. So for instance, let's use Ever After one more time. So we have Danielle who finds love from a suppressed situation, but then you have the older stepsister who is coming from an elevated station and is trying to find love with the prince, but ends up in a suppressed situation at the end. So that brings a little bit more irony to the situation and just kind of promotes the main idea of the story. Now, the best way to incorporate subplots into your main plot is actually to isolate each subplot and figure out what their individual stories are. So before you even start writing, before you even set up your outline, find out what these mini stories are from beginning, middle to end. So like in the case of this older stepsister in Ever After, you figure out, okay, so she's going to try with the prince here, and then she's almost going to have the prince, and then in the end she's folding laundry in the Americas. So you want to have that subplot already figured out before you even start your outline. Once you have all your little subplots figured out, then you can go to the drawing board and figure out how they can all fit together in your outline. And you can do your outline through either a timeline, or I do like to use post-it notes on a big cardboard, like a rectangular piece of cardboard. That way I can just kind of like move things around and figure out where I want things. So there's just a few tips on how to incorporate subplot in your main plot. Well, I hope that gets your creative juices going with subplots and how to incorporate them into your story. I certainly have a lot of fun with subplots. I think they add a really great dimension to story. If you want more of these kinds of ideas, you can definitely look at the book recommendations that I have in the description below. I also have a few more videos linked down below if you want to click on those too. So I hope to see you next time, but be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss a beat.